Welcome to the Score podcast.
I quote, "The rise in consumers' late debt payments is slowing down." That's the headline, according to an article in the May 30th edition of the Wall Street Journal. And based on what else? But insights from VantageScore's CreditGauge. So is this an upward climb out of a slow burn phase of delinquencies, or are we on a payment roller coaster ride? I'm Jeff Richardson, and welcome to the Score podcast. Joining me today is my colleague Atif Mirza, Vice President of Digital for VantageScore. This is Atif's second appearance on the podcast, and we are so appreciative of his time and his expertise. Atif has extensive experience in data strategy and financial services. He worked at Goldman Sachs, among many other financial services informations. And here at VantageScore, he builds and delivers tools and insights that help market participants better leverage the power that using VantageScore credit scores provide. And this includes our monthly consumer credit health indicator, of course, known as CreditGauge. Atif, thanks for joining the podcast today.
Thank you, Jeff. Happy to be with you.
All right. So I mentioned the Wall Street Journal article on CreditGauge that was published this week on delinquencies. So let's dig in there. Can you summarize what CreditGauge is showing about the ability for consumers to make their payments on time?
Sure. According to our latest insights from our monthly credit gauge, overall consumer credit health is improving as every VantageScore credit score remained at 702. This is a 1.5 point increase in the last 2 months due to decreasing delinquencies and improved balance loan ratios at overall product level. And Jeff, some of that decline in delinquencies is seasonal, typical of this time of the year, driven by people using tax refunds to pay some of their debt.
That's interesting. Always some seasonality, but also interesting to look at the year-over-year metrics. So let's talk a little bit about consumer migration. That's a topic that's on the mind of a lot of lenders right now. So we're seeing consumers migrate upwards and downwards from a credit tier perspective. Can you kind of give us a sense of, first, I guess, what the VantageScore credit tiers are, and then how are consumers migrating?
So what we have in CreditGauge is, I call the story of two very different consumer segments. And what we see in past few months is that VantageScore Prime segment, which is 660 to 780, is shrinking by 1%. And consumer dropped out of VantageScore Prime credit tier into VantageScore Subprime due to inflation-induced economic stress. However, in contrast, more consumers moved up from Prime to VantageScore Super Prime, which is an indication that consumers with higher credit scores continue to do well, while those with lower credit scores face growing economic pressures.
So a bifurcation happening and sort of the shrinking of the middle, which I think is actually, you can see that in sort of pockets of the population more broadly than the consumer credit market. All right, this is a quick podcast. So the last question I've got for you, what else should we know about this month's CreditGauge report?
Right. So apart from average credit score and delinquencies, we also cover originations and average balance and balance loan ratios trend in CreditGauge. Originations rose across products in April, led by credit cards and personal loans. Now, what you'll see is that new accounts in credit card and personal loans saw a significant increase in April following 3 months of decline. Auto loan originations climbed for a third straight month, signaling a possible shift towards easier borrower qualifications for car loans. And new mortgages rose slightly compared to a previous month as spring buying season began. And on the balances and balance loan ratio utilization rate, the overall credit utilization rate fell for fourth consecutive month, dropping to about 51.7%. That's the lowest level in 3 years. Account balances remained high, but dipped modestly compared to March 2024. The steady balances and coupled with the decline in utilization rate were likely a result of banks and lenders increasing credit card limits over past 12 months and decreasing balance of loan ratios and on personal loans and auto loans.
Interesting and awesome insights. And if you are not subscribed to receiving CreditGauge, you need to be. It is one of the leading indicators for consumer credit health and spending, which of course, much of the economy seems to hinge upon how healthy consumers are. And so please log on to VantageScore.com and sign up for our newsletter. Follow us on LinkedIn to receive the monthly CreditGauge reports. Atif, thank you for sharing these insights and looking forward to having you back.
Thank you, Jeff.
Another index that made headlines this week is that U.S. consumer confidence unexpectedly improved in May after deteriorating for 3 straight months amid optimism about the labor market. Actually, the CreditGauge insights were leading indicators in this regard. But it was a mixed survey. It was released by the Conference Board. It also showed consumers believed that the economy could slip into recession in the next 12 months. But nonetheless, consumers were very upbeat about the stock market, and actually many more plan to buy major household appliances over the next 6 months. Probably in all likelihood by taking out loans or putting it on their credit cards. Will they be able to pay these loans back is the question. We'll look forward to having Atif on again to better understand how consumers will fare on these loans and purchases and others. I'm Jeff Richardson, and I look forward to our next discussion.
The views and opinions expressed in this episode do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of VantageScore Solutions. Visit VantageScore.com to learn more.